All right. Hi, everybody. How you doing? I am Johann. That is Charleston. We have a West Coast show today. Joining us from Vancouver. I think you're in Vancouver. Farhan, where are you at?
I live just outside of Vancouver, yeah.
Just outside of Vancouver. Okay. We got a West Coast show today.
The best coast.
Yeah. We have joined us today from TSN, the one, the only, Farhan Lalji. I know I probably butchered your last name, or did I come close, Farhan?
No, it was good. It was just fine.
All right.
I've heard worse.
Yeah. How you doing, Farhan? How's everything out on the West Coast? You guys got some decent weather out there?
Yeah, we do. It's about 8 degrees and sunny. When I'm done with you guys, I'm going to head out for a run. It's been a good run of weather. Hockey game tonight. Got to cover the Canucks as well, so I've been doing that. And then this Tiger Woods thing happened, so that threw SportsCenter in a bit of a tailspin for the day. But, yeah, it's good times right here. Actually, truthfully, I'm just coming out of COVID quarantine because my son got COVID about 2 weeks ago. He's fine. But, and he was allowed to go back to school last week. But the rest of us in the household have had to stay in quarantine. We're all separated upstairs and downstairs and everything like that. Tomorrow we get the get out of jail free card.
Yeah, isn't this weird about how
nice.
My wife's a teacher, and one of her students or one of her colleagues got the same thing, and so we had to quarantine for a while too. It's just kind of messed up about how over the last year our lives have changed, and now we're doing work from home, or like you said, being quarantined in the house for a while. So it's just a different way of living. What else is new with you?
That's crazy. I was about to say, with your profession and everything, I just heard the news about Tiger Woods, and you've been pinging on it already, thinking about time to write up a story, time to get everything going. So what do you think about that situation right now? Let's go ahead and cover it since we've mentioned it already. Tiger Woods.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I haven't delved into the reasons for the accident. And, when it first happened, it all of a sudden takes you back to the last accident, right? And I remember at that time, I was covering a golf tournament, right? I was covering, I believe it was the Ladies Canadian Championship, which was being held out here in Vancouver at the time. And I was on the course when all of a sudden the news broke about Tiger Woods. And, at that point, that accident was framed as something different than what it turned out to be, right, with his wife's involvement and, the golf club through the window and all of that kind of stuff. So, it automatically takes your mind back to that. And, my understanding is this, the circumstances were completely different. But, it's, people will say what they want about Tiger Woods and all of the, all the extramarital stuff and everything like that went on in his world. But when you really look at why his golf game fell apart, in my estimation, it was all the injuries, right? And then he finally got it back together a year ago, when he won the Masters again, and it was a pretty good redemption comeback story, but he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. This obviously isn't going to help him. Hopefully he's okay. When you see that they had to use the jaws of life to get him out of there, the guy was a tremendous athlete. He was, and potentially still is, and he's been an icon, a guy that's absolutely changed the sport and changed sport, right? I mean, he didn't have to be a golf fan to get into golf and to know who he was. And, the other thing it makes you think about if he was actually seriously hurt is that we're just about a year removed from losing Kobe, right? And so, like I said, hopefully everything's okay, and we haven't seen the last of Tiger Woods.
We were thinking the same thing for sure. The minute he mentioned it to me, the first thing popped in my head was like, "Oh man, now what happened? What could be the cause of this?"
And that's exactly what Charleston's first thing was. Oh man, was he drinking? We were like, "Oh man, what?" Because of that last time. But exactly what you said too, Farhan, is that we just lost Kobe, and to be able to, from what I hear. His injuries aren't as bad, and hopefully there'll be a recovery. But man, could you imagine just losing two iconic athletes like that within a year? And it just makes me think about the times in sport that I can remember where I was sitting at home and I was on Facebook and my friend, posted it, R.I.P. Kobe. Right, and it just set me into shock waves. And it's funny how sports and these iconic moments do that. So crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I broke down when that happened a year ago. I had just gotten off a plane in Chicago connecting to an NFL destination, and I got off the plane and everybody was like, there was this buzz, like something different had happened. I remember getting off the plane when Osama bin Laden had been caught. You know what I mean? And there's just that different buzz when everyone turns their phone on and something historic happened. And and I'd met Kobe a few times. So when I got off the plane, I mean, I was in tears, and it was Definitely difficult news for sure.
So that's very interesting. I always want to be able to ask you guys, and a good friend of mine is Zarash Madani. I'm always lucky to be able to get into his head a bit and talk to him about. But Farhan, you've covered so many sports, different events, massive, events from all over Canada and the world. Can you think of any that off the top of your mind have really influenced you, or people, or what are your favorite events that you love going to, and some of the things you love to be able to say, man, I get to go to that again, or, the Grey Cups, or your friendships with guys like Charleston, things like that? What's been some of the highlights of your careers and some of the things you look forward to the most about your job?
Well, any game Charleston Hughes plays in usually is at the top of the list because there's going to be some entertainment there.
Check.
Honestly, as much as I'm a football guy, and you can see by the walls behind me, and the amount of connection I have with the CFL, honestly, I think my favorite events to cover have been Summer Olympics. And I had a chance to go to London and cover Usain Bolt, and go to Athens, and so I've done some fairly large events, and certainly Vancouver covering the Winter Olympics here in my hometown in 2010. And when you see that many athletes from around the world that have excelled in their events, and generally for non-monetary reasons, when you deal with Olympic athletes, certainly guys like Usain Bolt and the Dream Team are different. But by and large, Olympic athletes don't necessarily grow up wanting to make millions when you decide to become an Olympic athlete. So seeing those, and just, it's a festival, right? You get the best of the city, you get the best of the people, it's so much fun. Those have probably been the events that have stood out. I've covered a dozen Super Bowls, more than that as far as Grey Cups are concerned, Stanley Cups, what have you. I was there when Jordan made his last shot as a Bull. I was there when, Kobe and Shaq won all three of their first NBA titles together. So there have been some pretty cool moments that I've had a chance to see, and very lucky to have had the opportunity to just be there when history happens.
That's funny that you mentioned a sport like that. It's like Summer Olympics, especially because you never know what's going to happen when it's Summer Olympics, because everything only comes around once every 4 years. Yeah. So once every 4 years, you never know who's going to win what event. Sometimes it could be the person that, been trending for that time, but there's also opportunities where, that always don't happen like it is. With I think, Michael Johnson. And everybody thought he was invincible for the most part, and then he ends up losing from a hamstring pull. And then, little events like that are like pivotal moments in the sports decades.
Yeah, you're right. And it's funny because when you talk about sprinting, I remember in London in 2012, as we talk about Kobe, one of my biggest memories was watching the semifinal of the 100-meter dash with Usain Bolt, watching it with Kobe Bryant. Because Kobe was, he kind of came near our broadcast area. So what happens if you're a right shoulder, which we were at the time, they give you these sections, kind of a little square, kind of a pod, and basically based on the size of your country and how much your broadcast fees are worth, that's how close you get, right? So TSN, we were in the top 20 somewhere, CTV, and there was about 100 and some odd different positions. So Kobe was in the area, and the person that was doing security for the press tribunes, like for the rights holders, didn't know who he was. So I turned around and Kobe was near me, and I said to this person who was giving him static because he had the wrong credentials, I said, no, he's with me. So he walked over, and he kind of recognized me, and Kobe was friends with Cabby, who worked with us at TSN, right? Yeah. So he's like, we've met before, haven't we? I said, yeah, I'm Cabby's friend. So he's like, that's right. So then he came into our little area, and it was just myself and Kobe and our cameraman. And Usain runs, and he won by, I don't know how many meters. It was easy in the semifinal, and he pulled up early just to kind of save his energy. And just watching Kobe watch Bolt, and just Kobe blown away by how impressive Bolt was, it was pretty cool, right? That you've got arguably the best basketball player in the world just watching the fastest man in the world, and just the impression that the two men have of one another. I think that was kind of a neat moment.
Yeah, no kidding.
I find you, especially as like just an athlete in general, you admire other people in their profession, because you don't know how much hard work you put into a sport, say like football or basketball or something like that. So you can only imagine how much harder that somebody in like a track and field, a sprinting type sport, where it really only lasts 9 seconds. 10 seconds. If it lasts 10 seconds, you're slow. So it only really lasts 9 seconds. And it's like, how much work do you have to put in to run 9 seconds?
Quite a bit.
Well, and it's such a different mentality than what a football player does, right? I mean, I always find track athletes as tweaky, right? Because when you go through a training session, like if you have the slightest little tweak, you pull up. Like you have to pull up because it's all about peaking for maybe twice a year, right? If there's a world championship and an Olympics and or qualifying for the Olympics, like you really only have to peak a couple times, right? So it's such a different mentality than football where you just you gotta gut it out. You gotta fight and you've got to play hurt. And in hockey, you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs and the guys have to play hurt. You know what I find amusing, guys, is every athlete wants to think they can do what the other guy does. So how many guys in football, when you guys are practicing, Charleston, how many of the guys want to play one-on-one in hoops? Right?
Oh,
And so,
all the time.
I
We do it once every season.
but you, when you're playing one-on-one, like you probably tell half the guys you play with that you could have made it in college as a basketball player, right? And the guys that are playing
100%
basketball,
if I was 3 inches taller.
right? And like LeBron, who was a really good high school football player, loves to play catch with other football guys or with other basketball guys when he gets a chance. And then all of you guys think you could have been musicians and entertainers. And all the musicians and entertainers think they could be playing basketball.
Yeah, 100%.
Farhan, you don't know half the story about Charleston. He just went on the ice last year and played some hockey. Now he thinks he can be a hockey player. And he just went on the ice with Ben Hebert's brother, Chris, a few months ago. And now he thinks he can be a curler. And so with him, it's the competitive edge never stops, never surprises me because he's always going, Johann, I could do this. Give me 6 months. I can be an enforcer, and do that.
But the thing is this: if I don't believe in myself and anything that I do, then who will?
Yeah, but Charleston, you're saying you can be an enforcer in the NHL. Give me 6 months. I can take on Reeves. I can do that. Yeah, and I'm going, oh my God. No.
Hey man, you're 37 this year. You're gonna have to convince people you can still play football.
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought I was done convincing that. Golly, I guess that's a never-ending story too.
Well, man. Let's touch base on that because Farhan, you had an interesting quote a few weeks ago about how you think that there's no way the Argos aren't going to be cutting or letting loose one of their, big name guys that they've signed over the last few weeks. So.
And it won't be Charleston.
Yeah, I know that. But what's your thoughts on the Argos loading up like that they have been? I know here in Rider Nation, it's definitely people are going, first thing they're going to is, they're over the salary cap. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're over. What's Pinball doing? Yeah. But what's your take on that?
Well, look, what the Argos are going to have to go through is probably no different than what half the teams in the league are going to have to go through, right? So it's funny because I got asked a direct question by a reporter specifically about that situation in Toronto. So I answered it. Yeah. And somebody from the Argos organization sent me a note saying, it was a slow news day. And I'm like, wait a minute. They asked me a specific question. And one of the other websites quoted the interview 3 days later. And I said to myself, you got to be kidding. Yeah. So again, like it is something, not only at defensive line, but they also loaded up a receiver. Yeah. Right. So there might have to be some additional moves made there, and you can't keep everybody. Yeah. But you look around the league, and this is kind of what happens. Everybody goes to the trough, right, at free agency time, and everybody thinks they're going to find a way to make it work. So when I look at, there's a number of teams, not just Toronto, that's going to have to make some difficult decisions come training camp. And, look, when you look at Toronto, they've improved a lot, right? I mean, they added some really, really key pieces along that defensive line in the receiving core. They're really trying to set Ryan Dinwiddie up and also Nick Arbuckle, right, who's had 7 games as a starting quarterback. If you're smart as a GM and as a player personnel guy, you want to set your young coach and your young quarterback up with as many tools as possible to have some success. And if it means having some hard conversations in training camp, that's just life in the CFL. Yeah,
definitely. And so I wanted to know what with all these moves let's get into the CFL season period. How do you think that that's going to play? Because, from what I've seen over the last probably year and Charleston's I want to ask Charleston's opinion on this, but, there's been, for me as a fan, there's been little communication that's been correct by the CFL. And I've been very frustrated with how the CFL commissioner has really handled this, and from the way that he went about approaching the Canadian government for funds, to the lack of communication to the players. And what I've seen through social media is that they've been frustrated because there hasn't been a lot of communication. And now, what's your take on, you think that the CFL will get started? And first off, are they going to play?
Well, number one, I do think they're going to play. Number two, I think they're going to get started late, right?
Okay.
Because it's so vaccine dependent right now for
Yeah.
this league, right? They're not in a position to do the level of testing that some of the other leagues do. So the vaccine really matters, and not just because of players, right? The CFL is most importantly not in a position to play an entire season without fans, unless they're going to get a lot of government money, and they can't build a season based on government money because we saw what happened last time. Now, as far as that situation went, could the league and Randy Ambrosie have handled things differently the first time on the ask? Yes, they could have. But I'm also led to believe by some people pretty close to the process that they were certain they were getting it at the end, and there were some extenuating circumstances that the government was dealing with that forced them to kind of pull back. So, you know, I think when people get frustrated with the whole communication side of it, I get it. But I also think that people want absolute answers. And I just don't think that's realistic with a pandemic that's constantly moving. And if you look at what happened in the NHL, like the NHL literally decided on its season and when the start date was and what it was going to look like 2 weeks before it started, right?
Yeah,
like they
I was
went to
gonna
training
say, it
camp and they had
happened
just made the
sporadically,
decisions, right?
Yeah.
Look at Major League Baseball. Look at the NBA. Look at the NFL. All of them were making decisions. And Charleston, you know this, like, you know, even in high school football, okay? Every year in December of the previous year, I want to know my schedule for next year. And I'm a volunteer high school football coach. But culturally in our sport, we have routine, we have tight schedules, and you know, and we have all this planning, right? I mean, football is warped in that the practice and preparation to play ratio is insane.
Yeah.
When you think of the number of days Charleston spends in a weight room just so that he can play 9 football games, like, you know, at the high school level, we play 9 in playoffs. He'll play 18 plus playoffs. Like, that's a small number relative to an 82-game hockey season or 162-game baseball season, right? The practice and preparation to play in football, culturally, we're used to having so much lead time. And here they are in the National Football League, literally weeks before, making decisions and not having a preseason.
Yeah.
And in the NHL, we do the same. And we accept that because they're big money leagues. And then all of a sudden, if it happens in the CFL, we want to say it's Bush League. That's not reasonable.
Yeah.
So, you know, do I think there's going to be a season? Yes, I do. You know, could they adopt a different communication strategy? I guess so, but that doesn't change their reality. Because if you're looking for absolute answers, you're not going to get them. You're just not. Because what we do know is they need vaccines, and as long as that's fluid and government decisions, I mean, we don't know about junior hockey yet. You're in Saskatchewan. How big is the Western Hockey League in Saskatchewan? And we still don't know if they're even going to get a month of season. I think they will now. We know that, but it's so late in the game, and that's kind of how we're having to deal with this virus.
Yeah, I definitely think they'll get a season in with WHL, but with all these different leagues that are going on, and you know, you've seen, you know, a good platform of how it could be done or how it could be organized. I think going into this, you know, this year alone, I had in my thought process that, okay, if we go through the same thing we kind of went through last year, just not as, you know, intense of a moment, I'm thinking maybe we'll start in, like, I would say after June, August sometime will be at the latest is what I feel like we should start at. And that's just like me personally thinking about the situation.
Yeah. Has there been any communication, Charleston, to you guys as players? Have you heard anything of late?
The first round of communication that we're going to get probably is within the next couple of weeks or so. And I think Ambrosie is supposed to, you know, reach out to the players and, you know, a whole entire PA and really have a talk with us and have a discussion, like a heart-to-heart, I guess, discussion about how they're going to approach this upcoming season. You know, what can we expect if, you know, things go good or bad at the worst-case scenario. But just like I said, last year, I planned for the worst-case scenario. So this year, I'm doing the same thing all over again, planning for the worst-case scenario. So I'm going to act as though there is no season until I know otherwise. So
we're going to
what we do know is the league and the PA, they're on the verge of signing off on their return to play plans, right?
Yes.
Now, that's just the medical side of it, right? Because there's not going to be a bubble, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, they're basing it, their starting point is what the NHL did, right? Like they looked at that 600-page document on return to play, and then there's things in there that they can and can't do, right? And then they're on the verge of presenting that to governments, both federally and provincially across the country, to say, this is what we're prepared to do in all of our cities. If there's play, you know, can we get approval for that at least? And then the next step is, can we get fans? And every team is dealing with their provincial health authorities as to what it could look like for fans. What's the stadium modeling going to look like for 10%, 20%, 30%, right? We're probably not going to see 50% for a long time, but, what's that going to look like? And then the timelines for that are very, likely going to be based on the virus, right? So, they are talking. The league and the PA are talking, and the fact that they're collectively in a position to sign off on a plan that's going to go to government is a pretty good sign, because I think part of our biggest problem last year, right, was that the league and the PA weren't talking. Forget whether or not they're talking to you and me.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? So, so now that they're on the same page for that, I think that's a big deal.
So, Farhan, I want to know, one of the things, as you've been covering the CFL for how long? One of the things I always, we try and be able to follow everybody on social media, and today's age is all about the breaking the news story, being the first, Justin Dunk's doing this, or, Rod Peterson's doing that. I want to know about how the hell do you break all the stories you do? Are you on your phone all the time to be able to get that? Or is it just built on your relationships from the past? Or how the heck are you able to get all this info all the time?
And if you are on your phone all day, what kind of batteries, what kind of plan do you have right now? What kind of phone is it? Because it definitely ain't an iPhone.
Well, it's an iPhone, and I don't see a bill, so that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, it's all of that, right? We're on the phone a lot. I mean, Charleston, you and I were texting a lot during free agency. That's just part of the deal, right? So, but it is more than anything relationships, and I think the fact that I'm involved in the sport to the depth that I am, I think that helps, because I think there's a genuine feeling from the people that I deal with that I care about the game, right? Number one, I care about football, kids, all ages, and then I care about the league, right? So I think people know that. You try to build relationships with players, right? I mean, the one thing I will tell you, and having covered every professional sport in North America, the best athletes to deal with are CFL players, bar none. Bar none.
Why is that?
Right?
Why? And give me an example.
I think there's a humility there that comes with not making millions, right?
Yeah,
and I think that's real.
I was definitely going to say that. It's just control. Like, when you think about CFL and the players in the CFL, the fans in the CFL are the only fans in the whole entire world who have direct access to CFL players, like on a regular basis.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. No, you're right, and I think that the players, they train seriously. They just don't take themselves as seriously, right? So they're real people, and there'll be a lot of people that get offended at that because they think of their good Canadian boys that played junior hockey and went all the way to the NHL, and you have to think they're the best, and I don't. And I love hockey, but the CFL players are by far the best. So I've made every effort over the years to build relationships, whether it be coaching and the athletes. When they're Canadian guys and they're preparing for the combine and the draft, you get to know those guys at that point. With the American guys, you sit down. They're easy to talk to. They're real people. They don't make it hard, right? So I think it's easier to form relationships in this league than in any other league. And I think fans need to respect this, that, people look at CFL salaries and they say that, okay, well, they're making 10% of what the NFL guys make, so they're 10% as good as athletes, and they're not. They're 90% as good as players, right? And in many cases, they're better as people, but the salaries are more a reflection of the economies of scale as it relates to Canada, right? There's no U.S. sponsorship. There's no U.S. Television money coming in, right? So that's what their salaries are a reflection of. They're not a reflection of how good they are as athletes, because they are phenomenal athletes.
Yeah, very true. And I love that point you said about humility too. And these guys, from the guys I met, and even to the guy sitting beside me to the left, is one of the most generous, humble guys that I've known, that I've met out there. And for him, to be called a CFL All-Star and future Hall of Famer, and to see the things he does here in the community, not only in Saskatchewan, what he's done in communities in Alberta and soon to be in Toronto, it really amazes me how these CFL All-Stars athletes, and even the guys, the rookies, they are just a different breed, and they're awesome. Farhan, you touched base about something that I know that's very true to you, and your passion and be able to do that is coaching. I mean, you see in the background of your room there. Tell us a little about Farhan Lalji, the coach, because Charleston was...
This is what I've been waiting to hear. Did you apply in Edmonton?
Did you apply?
No.
Well, Charleston Charleston was saying that you have some pretty big. He was looking up some of your coaching. Is it awards that you've been recognized for?
All I kept seeing was Coach of the Year. Okay, 2012, 2016 Coach of the Year. I don't know what's happening out there in BC. What are you coaching? Like, have you put players into the league? Like, what is going on? Talk to us about this coaching career you got. And did you apply to Edmonton?
I did not apply to Edmonton. I get that. I get people on Twitter always asking if there's an offensive coordinator job that's opened up, and you're going to apply, and even collegiately. And truthfully, there was a time when I thought about that. I tell this story. Jeff Reinbold, it just makes him feel how old he is, right? So Jeff's now in Hamilton as the special teams coordinator.
Yeah.
So I've been coaching for 31 years. I began coaching about a year after I finished playing high school football, and then I was playing junior football, and I coached and played at the same time. And then I fell in love with coaching and just kind of the opportunity to make an impact on people. And, football just meant so much to me in high school. And my old high school football coach meant a lot to me then and still does now. So I've just always gravitated to the game. And then there was a time, I started coaching around like 88, 89, kind of in that window. And then there was a time in 1994. So I got my first media job at that time. And Jeff Reinbold was coaching with the Lions. He was a special teams coordinator, a defensive coordinator, something, coaching with Joe Pow. So I went down to their offices. Jeff and I were going to go out for dinner and drinks after he was done, getting film and everything ready. And he's like, just give me a sec. I got to go to the bathroom. So he goes to the bathroom, and I'm at his desk, and I look, and he's got his resume ready. Because every coach has an updated resume, right? Like, I mean, it's not like they were struggling. He wasn't going to get fired. It was early in the year. And I looked at his resume, and on his resume, he had coached in 12 different places in 10 years, right? Like, it was crazy. Every little tiny outpost in America, like Laramie, Wyoming, and, pick a tiny town, and Jeff had coached there. And Jeff was young still, and I looked at this and I thought, I don't want this life for a family I don't even have yet.
Yeah.
And at that time I was weighing coaching, because I was really into it, and I did a lot of networking and coaching at the time, and I was coaching in some Division I camps, and I had some Division I coaches come to me, and they really liked what I was doing, and they said, look, if you want to pursue this, we think you can coach at this level, and I want to help you. And then I looked at this thing with Jeff, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to play this media thing out for a while and see what that turns into, right? And so it was that time, like 94, that I decided, okay, I'm going to take the media path instead of the pro coaching path, because I knew what those jobs looked like, right? You had to, unless you were a big name and you could pass a bunch of the early steps, you got to coach at some limited earnings, $10,000 a year job at a Division III school and live in your car, and then you've got to kind of climb up. And it's a grind, right? And so I appreciate what those guys go through to get to the point that they're at now, whether you're a pro CFL coach or a NFL coordinator or Division I coordinator. And, people ask me, do you like the CFL or the NFL better? And I tell them neither. I like NCAA college football the best. Yeah, that's the truth. So at that time, the goal was, if I do this, I want to be a Division I head coach. And so I looked at those resumes and what guys have to do, and I just thought, gosh, you know what? Let's try this media thing. Could lead to a bit more stability, and here I am.
Yeah, I think you made the right career choice. That's for sure.
Heck yeah, man.
But just to what I do now, I was the head coach. So I've coached for 31 years. In 2003, I started a program out here at New Westminster High School. They didn't have football, so I started the program from scratch with some really good people. And so I've been the head coach there till prior to the pandemic. And now my son is going. He's in the 7th grade. He's going to be in the 8th grade next year, and we're looking at some things for him because he plays football and hockey. So I'm gonna take a step back from coaching high school. I'll still be involved, on an admin side, but I'm going to take a step back a bit and kind of spend some time kind of committing to him a little bit more. But it's been cool. We won a provincial title a couple years ago, and I've won a few awards, which, as everybody knows, when you win an award, it's because of the work everybody else does. It's just the head coach that gets credit. So, but it's been cool. I've enjoyed it. So
that's awesome. And again, I think you made the right career choice moving forward. But I mean, the one thing that I talked to, my old high school coach was Terry Eisler, running backs coach with Edmonton now. And that's the one thing that's always blown me away is the commitment that those coaches have, and especially even at, the high school level or the Prairie Junior football level here, with the Regina Thunder or the Saskatoon Hilltops, or at any coaching level, it always amazes me the time, the commitment. You have to have a strong family support too, because your wife's got to be at home with the kids, cooking supper while you're, going from work to coach, and it's almost like another full-time job, the travel too and everything. So
that's even longer than a full-time job, man. Coaching, you putting in 16-hour shifts sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I mean, it's funny because that's what turns people away from it, right? Because it's that level of grind that those guys have to do. And, even for me, like, during the high school season, conservatively, I spend 30 hours a week on football. Right. And in the off season, because you're constantly building, I'd spend 15 hours a week in the off season on football. Right. And I'm a volunteer. I've never been paid to coach. So it's hard. And you're right. It takes over your family. My wife is involved in all our fundraising. My son comes and watches practice. My favorite picture, if you look over my shoulder when I'm in my living room studio, you'll see a picture, and it's like me and my coaching stuff, my son in his football uniform, my daughter in her cheerleading outfit. We got the all-American family. So it's all over our house, just the colors of the team and, all of our wardrobes and all of this stuff. I mean, it's not something you do. It's a lifestyle, and it's a full-on commitment. And I've talked to Wally Bono. He and I sat down a lot, and he knows, the guys in the CFL, they know how much the younger guys or the guys coaching at the younger levels, how much time they put in. And they'll tell you that, like, if you see the picture, the video of my team winning this provincial championship here in 2017, like, there's no coach winning the Grey Cup that's any happier in that moment, just because of the amount of time you put into it. It's the truth, right? And I'm not telling you that I'm as good a coach as they are, not by any stretch of the imagination, but in terms of what it means a lot. And because football requires so much time, even to do it right. I mean, I'm constantly like video online, breaking down film, and technology makes it hard because it makes it easy, but you're expected to do more, right? So like I'm constantly on Huddle, breaking down film and doing all of those types of things and spending a lot of hours into practice planning and just same thing other coaches are doing at the levels you mentioned, Johann. So it's awesome. I love it. I wouldn't trade it in, but it's a lot.
Wow, that's amazing, Farhan. We got into a different side of Farhan, which is exactly what I wanted to do, is to be able to bring a different side. We want to say thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for talking a little bit of CFL football, a little bit about
that was good, man.
That
was some good stuff, Farhan. I didn't even know you were this interesting, huh? We didn't even get into the five-time reporter of the five-time reporter of the year.
Oh. Yeah, I'd rather talk about your haircut. You keep changing like 5 times every month.
Yeah. Well, Farhan, we want to say thanks again for joining us. Charleston always kind of leaves the show with some kind words for our friends. So I'll let Charleston finish it off.
Yeah, man, that was good. Like I said, man, that was good. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for talking with us. We know that we like to try to keep this very entertaining as possible, as we go along, and we keep, providing great content for our viewership. Oh, don't worry. Next time. We'll get you next time.
Yeah, we'll have some beers.
We're going to make you start off with 4 swear words right out the gate.
There you go.
But this is the Better with Age webcast, and the reason we call it the Better with Age webcast is because there's many things that get better with age. There's wine, there's whiskey, there's leather, there's you and your pretty face, there's me and my athletic ability, there's Johann and his terrible Yankee shirts. They just keep getting better as with age. But the most important thing of them all is friendships. And as I met you being in the CFL during the way, you've been a good guy, been a good guy to me. Now that you're a part of the Better with Age webcast family, hey, thanks, man. Appreciate you.
And very much love. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Hi, my name is Rob Peterson. I'm the broker owner of Realty One in Regina. Real estate and life is about great people, and that's why I'm associated with Charleston Hughes and Johann and IKS to sponsor the Better with Age podcast. Realty One was founded in Regina 11 years ago. It's an independent brokerage, it's local, and it's full of great people helping great local Regina people buy and sell properties. It's entrepreneurial based, which means you have non-narcissistic agents that have your best interest in mind, not their own. In these coronavirus times, real estate market right now in Regina and Saskatchewan is thriving because people are thinking more local, They're not thinking about traveling because we can't, and that's driving our market. When you hire a realtor, no matter who it is, no matter what company, please interview them. Please make sure they're a good personal fit for you, because that's what this is all about. It's good people connecting themselves with someone that they know has their best interest in mind. And that's what the Realty One family does, and that's what a lot of agents in Regina do. But make sure you take your time and find the best fit for you and your family.
It's that time of year when divisions are decided, champions are crowned, and legends are born. Now, it's your turn to win big. You've heard the name just about everywhere, MyBookie. They're the industry's leading online sportsbook and casino, and it's not hard to understand why. With thousands of lines to bet on all your favorite sports, NFL, NBA, and college ball. Check, check, and check. MMA and soccer, they've got all the latest odds, period. Take advantage of MyBookie's prop builder and live in-game betting, where every single run, throw, and touchdown is another chance for you to put cash in your pocket. Visit their mobile-friendly website today and get your deposit matched halfway up to $1,000. Just use the promo code when you make your first deposit. The best part is they make it simple, with a variety of ways to deposit instantly, including credit card, bank transfer, Bitcoin, and more. Whether you're at home or on the go, on your laptop or on your phone, it's not too late to make your New Year's resolution a resolution to get paid. Bet, win, and get paid at MyBookie.
All right, we're back with part 2 of our West Coast show. Joining us now, right now, we have the BC secondary coach. This man was a legend in his time, still probably is out in Seattle and BC. 2-time Grey Cup champion, 4-time CFL All-Star, Mr. Ryan Phillips. How are you doing today, Ryan?
Man, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. How y'all doing?
Hearing them stats ever get old?
It depends on the day of the week. You know what I'm saying? And also it depends on who's interviewing you. So, you know what I'm saying? Since you on, I gotta do whatever I can just to keep up. You know what I'm saying? You got too many accolades. So I'm just trying to keep up. I'm happy just to be in the conversation. You know what I'm saying? That's enough for me.
Well, let's jump right in on that. What's your first experience do you remember with Charleston, Ryan?
Man, listen, this when he was young though. You know what I'm saying? Now, like, this is the funny thing though. So this is the thing that's funny. Coming into this off season now, right? And now we've seen obviously the change in players and guys going to different destinations and so forth. I still didn't think that him or Willie would have left. Like, those are the two guys. Like, honestly, and I'm telling, and this is honestly being transparent. Even in our meetings, I was like, we're probably not gonna be able to touch those guys. So anybody else we might get a run at, but those guys, those teams ain't gonna let those guys go. And then, you know, to see him now, you know what I'm saying, like actually, you know, move to a different team. It kind of makes me think of myself when I left BC to go to Montreal for that brief time, because it was like, I really, you know, in my heart, I didn't really have no business leaving and things like that. But, you know, things play a factor, right? And you get to that point where you got to do what's best for you, and you got to, you know, take your career in your own hands. And, you know what I'm saying, like, to now see his growth from this point to when I first seen him when he was in Calgary, which was just a wrecking ball, you know what I'm saying, at that point, especially based on the guys that they also had on their team, right? I mean, they had goons on their team at the time, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? They had dudes. That defense had a lot of guys on the team that were young, energetic, full of life, and they were out there balling, but playing with, you know what I'm saying, with reckless abandon. And, you know, it's very rare you get teams like that. And even though at the beginning stages, you know what I'm saying, like, you know, we might have had their number a little bit at the beginning, but you could see that in a few years they was going to do it. And that's how they started doing at that point. And their maturity started to catch up with their ability. And, man, now, like I said, they're, you know, it's formed into a Hall of Fame career. And I'm not saying that just because I'm being honest. Like, there's not too many dudes I'm going to sit up there and say that about. There's some dudes that self-proclaim themselves as Hall of Fame guys. But when you actually have a Hall of Fame dude, you know what I'm saying, like himself and the John Bowmans and, you know what I'm saying, like I said, there's only a few. Those guys you see early, man, them guys got something different than everybody else. And he had that, man. So, like I said, man, to see his growth, man, has been honestly a great thing. But it's enough pumping him up, man. Let's go to something else.
Well, then I want to touch base on that then and say, okay, when you were young, you came in from the States. You came in and what was your take on the CFL? And who are some of the guys that really started to impress you right off the bat?
Well, sure. When I came in, the thing about it was when I came to BC in 2004, they had already went to the Grey Cup. So they were already pretty good.
Yeah.
They had lost to Toronto in the Grey Cup in 2004, so they were already pretty good. So then when I came in, they already had the G. Roy Simons, the Jason Claremonts, the Paris Jacksons. Dave Dickinson was our quarterback. First of all, we had 3 quarterbacks. We had Dave Dickinson, Casey Printers, and Buck Pierce all on the same roster. All these guys have been to Grey Cups. Right. So I'm looking in, practice time for me was Grey Cups. I'm like, man, this is simple. So when I got into the games, it was slow motion to some degree, because you're practicing against the best, almost, every single day. So, I mean, those guys were impressive. G-Roy was impressive to go against every day to see how he approached the game. But, for me, like I said, as far as playing against, to me, the best guy that I played against as far as like competitive-wise was between Nick and Arlen Bruce. And I'm going to give Arlen Bruce a little bit more of an edge due to the fact that me and Arlen Bruce was making it personal. Like, we made it personal all the time. Even though we was friends off, like, that's the thing about it. Me and him would make it personal on the field, and then we'll go hang out after. But on the field, we wanted to get the best of each other every single time. And he was a dog. Like, it was what it was. He was a dog. And like I said, what he made up for in stature, man, he had attitude. He played like a defensive player playing receiver. He would try to hit you. He had, he would run with Yak, and Nick obviously had that same type of deal, Nick Lewis. But like I said, Arlen, we made it personal at that extent. So, man, those guys were impressive, man, and let you know that, man, this wasn't no game to be taken for granted. And you had to, bring your game every single week, or else you're going to be embarrassed and you're going to be on TSN for the wrong reasons. So, those guys were impressive, man. And like I said, man, those guys
Are you talking about at that point? Are you talking about thin Nick or thick Nick?
We know which one. We know which one. The one that claims he was 190 some pounds at one point in his life, which we all know was never. Like, he literally, think about it, we getting so many arguments about it. He told me he was 192 pounds, 195 pounds. I say, Nick, listen, I was 194 pounds. And when we looked and we stood next to each other, I was a little bit taller than you because Nick hates the fact that he's really 5'8". But I was taller than him, and he was about 228 easily. I'm like, look at your 82. The 8 was stretched out. Like, it was like no way. But Nick was a dog, though. That's for sure. He's productive, so I can't take that part out. I can't take that away.
We had your old teammate Chris Wilson on our show a few months back, and he talked about how even in practice, he remembered going to walkthroughs, I think was at Charleston, that him and Jason Claremont would go through walkthroughs, and when they're going against each other, they started to get into it like, okay, this is game on, and do that, how competitive you guys were. How was that atmosphere? And Chris Wilson also stated that you guys probably had one of the best defenses in history, because, Chris Wilson.
He definitely said that was the best secondary he's ever played with.
Yeah. What was your memories of the 2006 team that you guys had? Because what's funny about that, too? I was at that Grey Cup game in Winnipeg, and I was in the dressing room because I knew Tyson Craigs, your long snapper, and our friend of ours, Kelly Bates, was the guy that broke the Grey Cup that game too, and be able to do that. But what's your memories of the 2006 Grey Cup champion team?
Yeah, no, that 2006 Grey Cup, man, was special, man. I mean, obviously it was my first one. So that made it everything that I wanted it to be. It was cold as hell, though, so I want to take that part back. It was freezing out there, especially during the practice week. And Wally being Wally, he didn't want us by no heaters. He didn't want us by nothing or whatever else. So we're looking at him like he done lost his mind. Mind you, we got some guys on our team from Florida and everywhere else that ain't never even seen no snow before. So they're already, looking to be bundled up. And then we got the likes of Corey Banks and these other guys, they're just – they are who they are, so let's just leave it at that. So, but no, that 2006 Grey Cup was special, man. And like I said, the personnel that we had so many different personalities on the team. You had the likes of myself that was in his second year, and say was still trying to come into his own, but at the same extent was being influenced by the Otis Floyds and the Carl Kidds and Corey Banks, and those three are totally different personalities than Baron Miles and Mark Washington. Like, you're talking about apples and oranges at this point. They still in the same basket. They in the same fruit basket, but we talking about apples and oranges. Where Carl and Otis is talking crazy. They saying whatever they want to say, stuff they shouldn't be saying, and about everybody's mama and everybody else. And then Baron out there talking about, come on, man, let's focus. And then Baron go get 2 picks like nothing happened. And it's just, it's crazy to me, like the fact that we all came together and, like, honestly, to me was one of the more dynamic, should I say. We were dynamic in the sense that, yeah, personnel wise, we had some guys that could play, but it's very rare that you see so many guys with so many different personalities actually come together and still be able to be on a common ground for a common goal. And like I said, we had different dudes that were just all over the place. And I think that's kind of what helped me throughout the course of time, because, when you play long enough, you'll start to see that you're going to come into a lot of different players with different characteristics, different personalities. And you got to be able to adapt and get those guys to mold into, into a team. And that was the first stepping stone. 2005, I was a rookie, so I was kind of wet behind the ears still, so I really wasn't taking it in. That second year, you start to really see how that actually works. And that was a big growing step, for me. But that team, I think, was tremendous. Defensively, would I say that team was better than 2011 for us, me personally? That's kind of tough because, we also, in 2011, we had Solly and Biggie at linebacker, and that makes it a little different, from a linebacker standpoint, even though Otis can match, Otis was dominant, during that era. But when you got both of those guys, it kind of makes it a little bit different, from that standpoint. But when we had some dogs, man, and them guys, man, like I said, that made the experience that much greater. And then we had the likes of, obviously, Dave Dickinson, and those guys on offense like G-Roy. Those guys are Hall of Fame dudes. Like I said, at that point, all we had to do was just make sure we didn't give up too many points.
So now that you done dealt with all that as a player, now you're on the coaching side. So now how is it dealing with knuckleheads? Because I keep telling myself that, man, I don't want to coach nobody like me. Like, I don't want to have to deal with myself.
Hey, that's real. That is real. No, listen. That is so 100%. So my thing is, I didn't even want to coach at first. I wanted to do front office. So that first year,
I'm kind of in the same
when I took
boat.
my first year off, man, listen, first year I retired, I scouted. Wiley hired me as a scout. I was only doing West Coast scout. It was cool. Then after that, they tried to give me the coach. I said, nah. So I took that year off. I went and guest coached at Calgary. When I say that was the best and biggest mistake I made at the same time, because one, it put you in a position that one, you're like, man, I didn't want to do this. But then once you get in it and you get a taste and you get around it again, you get stuck. And you're like, damn, this is actually not that bad. And don't get me wrong now, it is depending on the head coach and who you do have, because everybody's different. Dave is a perfect guy to coach for. I respect Dave as a player. I know him a long time, obviously. But Dave is a person that lets you coach. He lets you run your room. He lets you mold your guys. He lets you, do the things that, whatever it takes, in your way and your manner to get those guys all on board. I respect that fully. Where you might get some other coaches that want to be micromanagers and don't allow you to do that. The guy that I'm working with now, Rick Campbell, he's that same type of deal. He already said from the jump, he's gonna let us run our room, let us do those things. Clay Brooks was the same way, when I had him in BC as well. So you want to have guys like that if you can, because you don't want to be restricted, especially for somebody like us that played a long time, that have a lot of knowledge, feel like we can, run a room and give the guys the tools that they need to be successful. You don't want to be sitting up there being hampered over the whole time like that. That's not what you want. Like, that gets frustrating for you, because now you got somebody undermining you and doing some things that, maybe you're not comfortable with. But I tell you, if you don't want to do it, do not guest coach ever. I'm telling you, it will ruin you. It will ruin you. I promise you. Like, the hours, don't get me wrong, the hours are crazy. But you find yourself, like, because you're still young and energetic, and that's a personality. Like, that's where the likes of, like, me, you, some other guys, Nick, those guys that are naturally young and energetic, that bring an energy to the game all the time, we get stuck in these type of deals. The more that we can keep ourselves out of those environments, the better. So it's like, don't do it if you don't really want to do it. Yeah. But if you go and guest coach, I promise you, you're going to be on somebody's coaching roster the next year. And you're going to be like, what the hell did I get myself into? And don't say I didn't warn you. That's all I'm going to say. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Wise words from Ryan Phillips. Here you go.
Wise words.
Ryan,
I'm telling you.
Is there any player out there right now that kind of amazes you, or kind of you take a step back and go, damn, that fucking guy is good, or is there some players out there right now that you're looking at in CFL that go, shit, man, I don't know if I could have covered that guy, or like that? Any receivers,
reset your whole entire secondary right now. Who your number one draft pick?
Woo. That's tough, man. And my thing, if I don't take any guys on my team, they're gonna kill me.
Yeah, no shit. Watch what you say.
Exactly, man. Well, I'm gonna take TJ Lee for sure. So let me get that out the way. So before I get in trouble, I'm gonna take TJ. Nah, honestly, man, if I was to reset it right now, man, you know, I'm a guy that likes guys to go after the ball. You know, the play it safe guys have never been my best friend. You know, I get upset at guys like that. Those guys really get underneath my skin. So, you know what I'm saying? Gary Peters had a great year last year. I'm not saying that just because he's on my team. To me, in my opinion, the last 6-7 games of the season, he was the best boundary corner in the league. He was making plays with a messed up shoulder and everything. Was tackling well. He was making plays. I know Dalvin Bro was up there as well, obviously, as far as short boundary corners go. So for me, it's one of those two. You know, then you got, like I said, the TJ Lees. Man, you got guys out there that really just like, man, they really make plays, man. Brandon Smith was always, you know what I'm saying, after I retired, he was always my favorite. He was always my consistent favorite. Whenever I would tell anybody, you know what I'm saying, I told anybody, man, if there's anybody who want to mold your game after, it was him, because there's one thing about Smitty. He was consistent. He would tackle. He would play hard. He would make plays, and he would always cover the best. And that takes a different attitude and mindset. And like I said, if I can get him to come out of retirement right now, I would. You know what I'm saying? I would definitely try to get him if I could. But like I said, those type of guys, man, are dime a dozens. Those guys don't come around all the time. And you see the likes of like TJ, who's starting to be more consistent now. He's starting to be up in the ranks of those guys. And, you know, and at that point now, his production is starting to take his place too. So, you know what I'm saying, the more that you're starting to see guys like that starting to take the next step, I think that's huge. From a receiver standpoint, I mean, I think the top 2 or 3 guys kind of speak for themselves. I mean, you got some guys that have had injuries, but, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to just making plays, Brian Burnham makes plays. Speedy makes plays. You know, Speedy can be 5, whatever he is. He can lie and say what he is, but we know he's 5'3" and a quarter.
Yeah.
So with Speedy being 5'3", the thing about it though, everybody in the stadium can know Speedy's about to get the ball. Even if it's on an end around running play, it don't even matter. But Speedy gets it done. And I admire that. Like, the crazy thing is he's my youngest favorite player. And so when they came to BC, you know, and I introduced him to him, you know, my son's sitting there looking at him, and I had to tell him, like, hey, you know he's not on our team, right? Like, I had to almost remind him, like, hey, man, he don't play for us. And he's sitting up there, you know, in amazement, talking to him and, you know, running around with him and stuff. And I'm like, I respect that as a, you know, as a professional, you know, to do that for my son, obviously. But, you know, I had to remind him, like, man, you know, he's the enemy today. Like, he's not with us, you know. But I get why he likes him, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? So those guys make plays, man. The D walks, you know, and, you know, even guys that have been hurt, you know, Eric Rogers, those guys make plays. But there's never anybody that I feel like I can't cover. So let's just go ahead and just put that out. Right. There's nobody out there to that extent where I feel like I can't cover them. Like, because all those dudes that I mentioned were playing while I was playing. So I ain't worried about none of that to that extent. Do I think they can ball, though? For sure. And they probably maybe even got me a time or two. But as far as approaching the game, nah, ain't no way in the world. I'm definitely going to win 80%. That's for sure. I'm going to win 80%. I'm going to put my money on that, for sure.
Who was the best trash talker that you had in your time when you were playing?
On my team or against?
Both. On your team, I would have to say Carl Kidd. He was probably the nastiest, maybe, or I don't know.
Ooh. So, you know what? Him and Corey go neck and neck.
Yeah, Corey.
The thing about it is they're just different. Yeah, it's them two, but Carl was just nasty. Like, he was just way more reckless. Like, Banks would say some stuff, don't get me wrong, but to compare to Carl, it ain't even close. Like Carl was reckless. Like, to the point where even as a teammate, you be like, come on, Carl, man, that's crazy. like you have to say that. Like, I'll never forget in Montreal, he was on Montreal's sideline talking to I can't remember his name. He played linebacker at Montreal. And he said some of the most craziest stuff to the point that we had to grab Carl, like, hey, man, that's almost not okay for us. like
it's almost offside.
Like this is crazy. Yeah, like, hey, man, if he wants to fight you after the game, I honestly can't blame him. Like, that is crazy.
I'm trying to think who would have Shea Emery?
No, I don't know.
No. It was older. Who was that had the dreads? It wasn't Diamond Ferry, but he was at the same time as Diamond Ferry. He had dreads.
Brown. Brown?
Nope, not Gerald.
Wasn't Simpson.
Man, what is that boy's name?
I can't think.
Man, it's going to come to me. I know it's going to come to me. But,
I'm going to catch it later.
He talked so crazy to him. I said, man, this is outrageous, man. But like I said, teammate-wise, it's definitely them two. Playing against, I mean, Nick is Nick. And Nick just does outrageous stuff. And Nick does also things where, you know what I'm saying, like he had took some shots at a couple of my teammates in the day that I still don't approve of to this day. So he
Nick's going to be calling you right after this. You know that.
Yeah, which he should, because we still got to talk about it to this day. Like he ended some people's careers that I played with, man, because he's cheap shot at them, man, physically, and he beat them down mentally. So I'm like, you just tore them up in general, which is not okay. Like that was just Nick, but Nick, honestly, like Nick was up there as far as talking. Man, Nick was up there with the best of them. Like he goes line in line with the Carl kids and those guys. Like he did it naturally. And I feel like there's some guys that talk, they maybe don't have the production, but you know, they still got a gift of gab. When you actually have both that match, those guys that I name, man, those guys have the both. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and talk, but I'm also gonna back it up. And I feel like there's nothing you can do about it. And if you can't match their intensity, then you're gonna lose. You're gonna lose the battle. And that's how he was. Like that was him to a T. And so Nick was definitely probably number one in that sense as far as playing against. I can't really think of nobody else that really can match as much talking as he did because he don't mind talking and talking about himself. So
that sounds like Nick.
With that being said, yeah, for sure. But my thing is, he'll make it seem like he don't talk about himself, but he definitely talks about himself. He will definitely throw out some stats, and you'd be like, "How do you even know that?" And you'd be like, "Oh, I'm one of only 3 players that have 7 30-yard catches and 6 20-yard catches and blah blah." And I'd be like, "What? Like you just made that up?" And he'd be like, "No, Google it." I'd be like, "Come on, dude." That's all the time, man. So yeah, that's him, man. Nick is at the top for sure.
Definitely sounds like you know Nick Lewis very, very well. So Charleston, who's some of the guys?
Too much.
Yeah, who's some of the guys right now, Charleston? You can think of that are some good trash talkers in the game right now, or that stand out.
There ain't too many people out there doing no trash talking nowadays, man.
No?
I mean, they done made me dwindle down where I used to talk a lot of trash on the field, and now these guys just nowadays just be accepting it so much that I just dwindle down and just keep punishing them on the field.
Nice. Ryan, what's something that, okay, so over your years in the CFL, what's something that you now be able to teach the guys that you coach right now? What's some of the best words of advice that you can give to new players coming into the game?
Honestly, man, there's 2 things that go hand in hand. And some guys have a hard time with me telling them this just because, I had the luxury of playing a long time. But I always tell them, man, at the end of the day, man, your opportunities are short-lived. And the more that you can be financially literate, the better you'll be overall, period. And I don't mean just post-career. The more, I mean like even during your career, because the more off-the-field distractions that you can avoid, the better. You know what I'm saying? It definitely enhances your performance. It enhances your mindset, your mental focus, the things that, now that you bring to the table every single time you come to work, whether it's practice or whether if it's at the game. Those, to be financially literate, to that extent, alleviates some of the other worries that you don't have to worry about anymore. And those things sometimes play a big factor in guys' emotion and guys' moods when they come to work. But the reality of it is the opportunities are short-lived. Guys like myself and Charleston and other guys have definitely been able to play a long time, but that's not regular. And, that's just the truth of the matter. Everybody doesn't have the luxury of playing this long. So, whether you get 2 years in, 3 years in, you got to make the most of them. And the reason why you're able to get to the 6, 7, 8 years or even to the 10 to 12 is because you are able to be consistent. And consistency is everything. And you got to be able to do that. So your performances have to be consistent. That's how you stay on rosters. The minute that your play starts to go up and down and it fluctuates, the minute that now they want to replace you and get rid of you. And, so that's just the name of the game. And, there's nothing that you can do about it. Every dog is going to have his day, but you want it to be later than sooner. So I think those 2 things go hand in hand. The more that you can keep those things intact, the better off you will be. And now you'll be able to, continuously grow in your game and grow in your opportunity and in your career. So that way now you can make the most of it and get the most out of your playing days.
Yeah, definitely. Wise words I think that's what we got to call this this segment is the wise words from Ryan Phillips. So I'll be able to do that. Charleston, anything else you want to add for Ryan?
Man, you've loaded me up with a lot so far. Now gave me all these words about coaching and all this stuff about how to be financially literate.
Don't you guess, coach. don't you do it. Don't you do it. I'm telling you. I put it like this. As soon as you guest coach, if you guest coach somewhere and they don't hire you, don't be surprised if you on my roster when I become the DC, and then you're gonna be like, what the hell we just do? And we're gonna be laughing like, I told you. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say, I told you. I told your ass, do not go out there. Now look at you.
See,
now you and me's with me. Now we're looking at each other.
Sometimes you gotta accept it the way the dice roll. When they rolled a certain way, then you just gotta. The same way you were when you were coming out, you saying like, I do not want to coach. I've been singing that same song saying I do not want to coach. And the minute I started training kids and coaching kids up and started seeing development and seeing me installing what I know into somebody else, then now I'm looking like, that wasn't so bad. It was
you infatuated with it.
Yeah, I started getting to like it. Yeah, it was self-gratifying. I started feeling myself a little bit, knowing like, see, I could do this.
Maybe this is Ryan. Ryan's starting to recruit Charleston already here, and you're going to be able to.
No, listen, it's over. It's over. Listen, as
Sign
soon as
the
I'm a
papers.
DC and he decides to hang it up, he's going to guest coach with me first. And then I'm going to hire him as a consultant before I actually hire him.
There
so
you go.
At the end of the day, we're going to get it. I already got a plan.
Yeah, right. There we go. Now we have Charleston's future all mapped out for him. Right on. Well, Ryan,
man.
Thank you very much.
And I'll even let him keep doing. I'll let him keep doing podcasts too.
Let's go. Hey, there you go. It's already in the
matter of
contract.
fact, we didn't even get into what you got going on with your podcast called Move the Chains. We'll leave that as the last thing we talk about.
Yeah.
Well, Move the Change, man. Move the Change is something that that we want to get going. It's about diversity. It's about inclusion in football. And the thing about it was, I wanted to be able to bring that attention to a lot of people that maybe don't understand and or don't really got a glimpse of what we go through as professional athletes, as football players. A lot of times people from the outside in think that we're invincible and they think that we're not human and that we don't encounter some of the same things. But a lot of times we encounter different things as well, whether that's through the system, through politics, through things like that. But also we're still, dads. We're still fathers, husbands, boyfriends, men at the end of the day. So, we still have to deal with, diverse situations and, we have to face adversity as well. And I feel like we have the platform now to enhance the awareness and knowledge and perspective of what that actually looks like. So I didn't want to make it just a CFL thing. I wanted to make a football thing. So I have guys, that's on from the NFL, from the CFL, and those guys are going to be on, and I'm trying to make sure that we do at least two episodes a month. The next episode will have guys like Lance Moore on there and, and things like that. And then obviously when I have you on, I'm going to have Tyler Lockett and some other guys. I'm going to have a whole bunch of different guys on, but I'm also going to have media personalities on because that's a part of our game too. And there's a lot of things that they encounter and deal with, even from a social aspect and from a media aspect, that should be talked about, So I'm going to have a whole bunch of different things happening, but it's more so just to raise awareness and get people consciously thinking about, the things that we can change, how we can evolve, how we can be better around the game, but also outside of the game. So then that way we can, basically give a better environment and a better atmosphere for guys to be successful. And that's, yes, for the minority and yes, for, the black players and black coaches and, maybe future general managers and presidents that we may have. But it's more so about the opportunity and making sure that we're giving those guys a fair opportunity so that way we can grow the game for everyone instead of, making it just maybe one dimensional or maybe limited in some rights.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where can we find on Apple, on iTunes or what platforms can we find your webcast or podcast?
Yep. So it's on Apple. It's also on BC Lions website. It'll be on, on the CFL websites as well. The second episode will be launching this week. And then after that, like I said, the next episode after that is when I'm going to have a actual live panel. And the live panel is going to be live questions and things like that. So I'm going to have Charleston come on, let him bring his expertise. I'm also have Brian Burnham. I'm going to have Adam Big Hill. I have another surprise guest as well. So, like I said, I like to make it well-rounded. I want guys that, present a different dynamic. And between those three guys alone, all those guys are different. Obviously, Charleston is more animated, so that's why I had to have him for sure. He was the first one I asked before all those guys. You know what I'm saying? So then that way, we were able to get, we want to keep it light, make sure, that we're able to get everything out. But the best thing about it is it's unfiltered, and that's what I like. It's unfiltered, it's raw, it's real. I want everybody just to be transparent and honest. And if you're not going to be that, I won't even invite you onto the show because to me, it's doing a disservice. So that's why I picked those guys individually, on purpose. So then that way, like I said, we can bring a different dynamic and that way we can get, some things rolling, hopefully in the right direction.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, good luck with that. We'll be tuning in. I know I'll be tuning in. We'll throw out the links to be able to get you a few more of our viewers and be able to do that. thanks for everything for coming on, Ryan. I know you got to be able to go
Man, I
and take
appreciate it.
You got to go take your call from your coach Rick Campbell that you cut
Oh
off.
man,
So-
man, I'm telling you, man. Ooh, y'all gonna get me in trouble, man. I might get fired on my day off, man.
No, Rick, that's my boy, man. Tell Rick I said what's up.
yeah, tell him, Charleston.
I'm a definitely.
I got 18 sacks when Rick was coaching me. Shoot, can't do nothing but like that.
That's what I'm telling him. I'm like, Rick, man, when you hire me at the DC, I'm bringing Charleston on. I'll recruit.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, recruiting already. Well, Ryan, we'll let Charleston close out the show in the way that the only Charleston can.
No, that was pretty good, man. Thanks for coming on the show, Ryan. I appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you further down the line sometime when I pursue my coaching career, if I pursue my coaching career. But I'm pretty sure we'll meet up again, man. But this is the Better With Age webcast. The reason we call it Better With Age webcast because there's many things that get better with age. There's wine, there's whiskey, there's leather, there's cheese, there's my athletic ability, there's you and your knowledge. Everything just keeps getting better as we go along, and approach life throughout, day after day, throughout this whole pandemic. Everybody just keeps finding a way to get better and improve themselves. So just want to tell you thank you for letting the animated guy come on your show, Move the Chains, and thanks for coming on mine, Better With Age.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
All right, Ryan, take care, all the best, and go say hi to Rick.
Absolutely, man. Y'all have a good one.